$1. There is $1.76 in debt, which hides wealth inequality that have gotten worse. Today, 20% of richest Canadians have 60% of our wealth. Why do I say this? Because I only have 50 seconds left. That is very true. But it's also to say that this measure is insufficient, and I'll have the opportunity to conclude my remarks after the question period. Indeed, the Honourable Member from Mirabel will have 5.5 minutes for the rest of his comments.
Déclaration de député, statement by members. The Honourable Member for Fredericton Oromocto.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to mark the passing of Gunner Sebastian Halmagian, a brave member of the Canadian Armed Forces. Gunner Halmagian was originally from Hamilton, Ontario, was based at the 5th Canadian Division Support Base Gagetown in Oromocto. He had just deployed to Latvia on Operation Reassurance, his first overseas deployment, with a strong sense of duty to serve his country. Son décès est un perte profondément.
We strongly feel his loss. His loss is felt deeply by the Canadian Armed Forces, and especially by those who served alongside him at the beginning of his very promising career.
His loved ones and all those who served alongside him. I join all members of the House in offering my sincere condolences to Gunner Sebastian Halmagian's family. May his service never go unrecognized. May he rest in peace.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Speaker, Essex has recently lost 3 amazing individuals. Sandy Repko was known and decorated for her tireless commitment to her community and her willingness to serve others. At the hockey rink or the basketball court, the council chambers, or a fundraiser, Sandy was there with a smile, helping anyone who asked. Tommy Hulkinen embodied what many of us strive to become. As a loving husband of Tina and father of so many, a God-fearing man and fearless leader of his brothers and sisters at Brotherhood of Carpenters Union, Local 494, by Private Members Bill C-241 will forever be Tommy's. Tom Kistner was my brother in firefighting for many years. I'm sure his finest memories were walking the streets of Kingsville with the love of his life, Robin. He was quiet, but his presence was respected. He taught through example. Sandy, Tommy, and Tom, you were each my friends and mentors in your own special way. Thank you for leaving the world a better place than you found it. You are each truly missed.
The Honourable Member for Humber River Black Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize an important development. The decision by the European Union to designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization. This decision reflects the courage and determination of the Iranian people who have endured the IRGC's repression for decades, including the tragic loss of life during the January 2026 uprising. For more than 20 years, democratic opposition leaders and thousands of parliamentarians from around the world have called for this designation, noting the regime's destabilizing activities across the Middle East. This listing must be accompanied by further steps, closing the regime's diplomatic facilities, expelling its agents, cutting off its financial networks, and recognizing the right of Iran's youth to resist tyranny in the pursuit of a democratic republic grounded in human rights. Canada acted by listing the IRGC in 2024, and today I call on the United Kingdom to follow suit and register the IRGC as a terrorist entity. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
I solemnly rise in the House today to offer my most sincere and heartfelt condolences to the family of Canadian Armed Forces Gunner Sebastian Halmagian, or as we knew him, Sebi, a resident of Stony Creek, and someone I've been privileged to know and watch grow up since he was 5 years old. Sebastian was a gunner posted in the 4th Artillery Regiment of the Royal Canadian Artillery. He was on his first overseas deployment in Latvia, where he unfortunately passed away. Sebastian long felt the pride and calling for service to his country and was an outspoken advocate for more young Canadians to join the armed forces. Sebi loved his country and our military. He was a wonderful son, friend, and loyal soldier. Colleagues, please join me in sending our condolences to the family and loved ones of Sebastian Halmajan and to thank them for his service. He will be remembered for his bravery and his loyalty to his country. Sebi, you are a Canadian hero. May God rest your soul.
L'honorable député de Rivière.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to express my immense pride in Canada and in my riding of Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Michael Kingsbury, a native of De Montagne, has been chosen to be one of Canada's 2 flag bearers in the Canadian delegation to the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics. At the end of the week, Michael Kingsbury is an exceptional athlete and an iconic figure in freestyle skiing. He embodies excellence, perseverance, and pushing oneself beyond one's limits. His remarkable achievements inspire an entire generation of young people to believe in their dreams and to strive for excellence. On behalf of the people of Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, I congratulate him from the bottom of my heart, and I wish him every success at the Olympic Games, and I wish success to all Canadian athletes at the Canadian Olympics, which begin this week. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Milkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay isn't just home to the most beautiful rivers, lakes, and valleys in all of Canada. It's also home to the world-class athletes. First, I want to congratulate my local hockey team, the Penticton Vees. The Vees have a long history of hockey in Penticton. In 1955, they won the World Championships. In 2012, they won the National Championships. And now, in their first season in the WHL, they just completed a 14-game winning streak. Go, Vees, go! Then there are the siblings Jasmine and Remy Drolet from Rossland, who will be going for gold at the Winter Olympics this month in cross-country skiing. Thank you for your hard work. The whole community will be cheering you on. No one will stop Canada when we go for the gold.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, community organizations contribute to our lives in countless ways. At my annual New Year's levy, we celebrated 16 organizations in Don Valley West with anniversaries up from 5 to 75 years in 2025 and 2026. Today I want to lift up 4 celebrating this year. Flemington Community Support Services, working with some of our community's most vulnerable people, and the York Mills Chinese Association, which ensures newcomers have a great start, both with 10 years of service. The Canadian Language Museum, which for 15 years has promoted all languages used in Canada, the Leaside Garden Society, beautifying our community for 40 years, and Glendon campus of York University with 60 years of bilingual post-secondary education in Ontario. These organizations enhance our community and provide opportunities to meet, learn, and grow. It was a pleasure to honor their contributions in our community, a privilege to stand in this chamber and recognize their success. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. John, St. Croix.
Mr. Speaker, in the last year alone, the price of groceries has gone way, way up again. Families are spending over $1,000 more on groceries today than just a year ago. The Liberals say it's not their fault, but that's not true. Canada has the highest food inflation in all the G7. Why are Canada's food prices so high? Because the Liberals put a tax on food packaging. They put taxes on the farmers and the truckers who deliver our food to grocery stores. And Liberals will not increase competition in grocery chains. Will the Liberals back our Conservative plan for food affordability, a plan that lets Canadians keep more of their hard-earned dollars? Or will Liberals keep inflating food prices with ever and ever higher taxes?
L'honorable député Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the little guy from Saint-Cœur-de-Marie, Michel Marc Bouchard, he is a world-renowned playwright. He showcases Quebec's culture around the world. And now we are proud that his name has been added to the sign of the Alma Community and Cultural Centre. As an icon of Quebec culture, Michel-Marc Bouchard has always promoted love in all of its forms in over 25 plays that have earned him numerous awards both here and abroad. Even though his plays have been performed on the major stages of the world, Michel-Marc Bouchard still deeply loves his hometown. In his words, and I quote, "Every year I come back, I make my way to Lac-Saint-Jean as one returns to an old song that has been forgotten. I come back to breathe the air that watched me grow up. I come back to the familiar laughter and silences that sometimes speak louder than words." Michel, you have always known how to depict reality through the codes and language of theater. That language often speaks louder than words themselves. You always speak for your work, for your artistic courage, and for your love of Quebec and Lac-Saint-Jean. Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, as we observe Black History Month, I rise today to recognize the enduring contributions, resiliency, and legacy of Black communities in Nova Scotia and also across Canada. In South Shore St. Margaret's, we are home to a significant chapter in Black Canadian history. The Black Loyalist Heritage Centre in Birchtown preserves the stories of the Black Loyalists, men, women, and children who sought freedom, built communities, and helped shape this country despite the immense injustice. Once the largest free Black settlement in British North America, Birchtown remains a powerful symbol of perseverance and hope. I want to recognize the staff, volunteers, and descendants who ensure these stories are never forgotten. Last fall, I was also honored to attend the unveiling of the No. 2 Construction Battalion Monument in Shelburne, commemorating Canada's first and only all-Black military battalion. Black History Month is Canadian history. This month is a time to learn, reflect, and share. Thank you.
The honourable member for Saskatoon South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My province of Saskatchewan has long held the distinction of feeding the world. Yet Canada today has the distinction of leading the G7 in food inflation. Food prices in Canada are rising twice as fast as they were when this Prime Minister took office. In Saskatoon today, there are over 24,000 visits a month to the food bank, a record high, and it's climbing. Rising food prices are a direct result of the industrial carbon tax, which drives up the costs of equipment, fertilizer, and food processing. Conservatives are ready to fast-track through Parliament proposals that will reverse the highest food inflation in the G7. Let's start by eliminating the industrial carbon tax, the 17 cents a litre fuel standards tax, boost competition in grocery chains, and cut red tape for all farmers.
The honourable member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, it's with heavy hearts that we mourn the passing of Miguel Domingues, a cherished leader, musician, and a pillar of the Portuguese community. Miguel was a maestro of his beloved Banda do Sagrado Coração de Jesus of Toronto for decades, and the conductor of the Banda do Senhor San Cristo. In their words, he stood at the helm of these marching bands, guiding its musicians with passion and an unwavering love for music. Under his baton, the bands not only flourished musically, but also served as a vital touchstone for the community. Miguel's powerful operatic voice and leadership ensured that their cultural traditions remained alive, bringing joy and a sense of belonging to the countless festivals, processions, and concerts. His legacy is written in the notes he taught and in the camaraderie that he fostered among the band members he mentored. He will be remembered not only for his musical talent, but for his dedication to the arts and his commitment to preserving our unique heritage. He was a dedicated husband, a loving father, and our deepest condolences go to his extraordinary wife.
The honourable member for Calgary Heritage.
Hope and unity. Rhetoric over results. Conservatives are returning to Ottawa ready to fight for Canadians. This weekend's convention sent a clear message. Nearly 90% of support for our leader from across our country. A landslide mandate for unity, for hope and results. Contrast that with 10 years of Liberal failure. Housing out of reach, food unaffordable, crime rampant, immigration broken. The Prime Minister changed the rhetoric, but not the reality. He grows government, divides Canadians, blocks projects. Conservatives empower people. We will cut taxes, cut red tape, lower costs, unlock our potential, our ingenuity, and get our resources to market. This is the momentum we saw from Calgary, united around work, family, and country. To those carrying the country on their back, feeling unseen, underappreciated, and overworked, Conservatives see you. Conservatives will fight for you, and we will restore the promise of Canada for you.
The honourable member for Mont-Saint-Bruno, l'Acadie.
Monsieur le Président, le mois de février.
Mr. Speaker, February is Black History Month. This is an important time to recognize the contribution of Black people to Canada's history, culture, and development. From workers to artists, from entrepreneurs to community leaders, Black people have helped build Canada from coast to coast, including in my riding of Mont-Saint-Bruno, l'Acadie. For me, this moment is also personal.
It is meaningful. It's a moment of pride, gratitude, and responsibility. Après 15 ans de vie,
I have lived here for 15 years now. Taking the floor in the House of Commons during Black History Month is a significant achievement for me. This month is a time for reflection. It reminds us of the importance of fighting racism and of continuing to work toward equity, justice, and inclusion.
Equity, justice, and dignity for all. Ensemble,
together, let's continue to build a strong Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brandon-Souris.
For a weekend in Calgary, Mr. Speaker, thousands of delegates, hundreds of observers, and a resounding 87% support for the leader. Thank you, Conservatives. If there is one thing clear from this weekend, it's that the Conservative Party is a united, younger, energetic, and more diverse party than ever before, and that is directly a result of this leader and his efforts. So now that our members have made that clear and the Liberal fear and schmear campaign dies with a whimper, let this Parliament get to work. Conservatives have endorsed hopeful solutions that ensure safer streets, young people have more job opportunities, and affordable home ownership returns. It is these hardworking men and women who do everything right and are too often left behind by these Liberals. These are the people who have joined our party, who showed up in Calgary, who support this team, who knocked on doors from coast to coast, who demand action and expect results. To them I say, we see you, we hear you, we're ready to get the work done, and under this leader, you'll never be left behind.
The honourable member for Yukon.
Dance. Don't say dance. That is the spirit, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, the sound isn't coming through for some reason or other. We'll start from the top for the honourable member for Yukon.
Dance, don't say dance. That is the spirit, Mr. Speaker, of the upcoming 13th annual Yukon African Music Festival. Qui aurait pu croire dans l'obscurité?
Who could have believed that in the darkness and cold of early February, the African community in Yukon could bring us music, light, and joy to get rid of the winter blues?
Yukon African Music Festival, organized by Yukon's Talia International, highlights the rich variety of African culture. Award-winning artists from around the globe will be on stage or showcasing their work, bringing Yukoners of all backgrounds together in honor of African heritage. Beyond dancing and music, Talia offers workshops and events about Black history, African culture, social change, leadership, music, and youth empowerment. Join me in congratulating Leonard Boniface and the board and volunteers with Yukon's Talia International for putting together yet another amazing event. Asante sana, Mr. Speaker, and see you on the dance floor.
Oral questions, questions orales, the honourable member for Thornhill.
cue, the government is back with the same recycled ideas on grocery prices. They promised a grocery rebate years ago, and food bank lines got longer. They spent years talking about affordability, and prices kept climbing. They promised action, but after all of that bluster, groceries will cost a family of four more than $1,000 extra this year compared to last. Wow. And now they're back at it again, offering the same inflationary plan, $10 a week off of a $300 grocery bill, and that's not even for everybody. So why are Canadians supposed to believe them this time?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
It might be that my colleague was more concerned about their own future, but on this side of the House, we were concerned about the future of Canadians. That's right. There's a lot to be rejoiced today, Mr. Speaker. That's why I see the Conservatives so enthusiastic. It's Monday and we have good news. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because we did the second reading of C-19, Mr. Speaker. C-19, that's why I see all the Conservatives smiling, Mr. Speaker, because they know that helping 12 million Canadians is why Canadians sent us here. Mr. Speaker, we're going to build a strong Canada. We're going to build strong families because we believe in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
I don't think he grasps the irony of today. In 2023, that same finance minister promised that he would, quote, bring price stability to Canadians. He summoned the grocery CEOs to Ottawa. He promised competition. He promised affordability. And then he delivered 2 more years of whatever that was. Now in Canada, we have the highest food inflation in the G7, and over 2 million people are lined up at a food bank every single month. The groundhog saw his shadow today. Will the finance minister finally see his, or will Canadians get the same Trudeau policies that we had for 10 years?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I'm so happy to see that some Conservatives are actually reading what we're saying, Mr. Speaker, and listening. I think they should listen to Canadians because that would help them, perhaps, Mr. Speaker. 12 million Canadians are going to be benefiting for our measure, Mr. Speaker. 12 million Canadians. This is not something to shout about. This is something to rejoice, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, we meet Canadians where they are. Canadian has told us, give us a boost, give us a bridge, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build a stronger economy in the G7. We're going to be there for Canadians. We're going to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Are literally the definition of insanity. 3 years ago, this finance minister promised Canadians that he would solidify food prices. Today, he's tabling the tired Trudeau policy that failed the first time. Right. The only results of Liberal policy is Canada has the highest food inflation in the G7, twice that of the United States, and Canadian families are paying more than almost $18,000 a year just on food. So will the Liberals support real affordability plan, cancel their hidden taxes on food, or will they continue with this insanity?
Right on. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, the Daily Bread Food Bank, the CEO of Food Banks Canada, Food, Health and Consumer Products of Canada, and Roots Community Food Centre in my own riding, Mr. Speaker. These are all food centres that have praised the work of the government and the new groceries and essentials benefit that many are saying will provide relief exactly when people need it. And you know what, Mr. Speaker, across the aisle, these Conservatives talk and talk and talk, but do they ever support a good idea? No. They have no idea what to do. All they know how to do is oppose and deny the help their own constituents want and need.
Wow. The Honourable Member for Foothills.
It's going to hurt the Honourable Member, but under Conservative government, the average weekly food cost was about $160 a month or week. Now it has more than doubled under the Liberals to $340 a week. The facts are that the Liberal policies are driving up food prices to Canadians. The fact are 2.2 million Canadians are using a food bank every single month. And the reasons for the food prices aren't a secret. It's an industrial carbon tax, a fuel standards tax, driving up the costs on food, fuel, fertilizer, and farm equipment. So again, will the Liberals support a real food affordability plan, a Conservative plan, or will they continue to drive up food prices?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, here we go again, talking about imaginary taxes instead of the real things that help Canadian families. Last week I met with provinces and territories from across the country who all agree that, for example, the early learning and childcare system is saving families in all of our jurisdictions, sometimes up to, Mr. Speaker, $14,000 a year. That's the kind of thing that Conservatives vote against. Whether it's a school nutrition program, support for families their children, or now a groceries and essentials benefit that will help some of the most vulnerable in our community, they say no to their Conservatives, even their Conservative voters.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, Canada now leads the G7 in food inflation. In 2023, the Minister of Industry, however, stated that the Liberal government had obtained a commitment from major grocery chains in Canada to stabilize and lower prices. Then in September 2023, the same minister threatened to use all means at the government's disposal to force them to lower grocery prices. In October of the same year, the minister claimed victory, saying, and I quote, Canadians will see discounts, price freezes, and competitive pricing programs. Today, food inflation in Canada is twice as high as in the United States. What happened to his promise? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to see that my honourable friend is able to list all of the measures we are putting forward to help Canadians. In fact, 12 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker, will benefit, and I can see it in his smile today. He's pleased because it's his second reading has begun. He can go into his riding and say, thanks to the Liberal government, we are standing up for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. And I see his colleagues, they're all getting ready. You know, I'll invite him, and I think there are more bits of great news. I'll invite him to ask another question because there's more great news. It's Monday. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we've already mentioned that we will not be against giving $10 off coupons to Canadians a week, but the same minister at Industry 2 years ago said that the Federal Financial Consumer Agency would actually be monitoring price reductions at major grocery chains. But what we're seeing is that food costs have gone twice as high. What does he have to say about that? The Honourable Minister of Finance. I get the sense that they want more great news, Mr. Speaker. $500 million for the Strategic Response Fund for structural measures in Quebec and Canada. Additional funding for food banks, national strategy for food security, standardization of labeling. Not only are we acting on one-time basis to support Canadian families now, we're also making food security at the heart of the government's business. I'd invite all members of this House to vote in favour of the bill. Let's move forward for Canadians and build a strong Canada. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, retirees have been waiting 9 months for their old age security checks, and they still haven't received a penny. And that's because this government refuses to fix the glitches in its new CURAM software. It's been aware of the problem since June, when it was informed of them by its officials. And yet, as recently as Friday, the government House leader told us that they would correct the errors if there are any. Well, there are, Mr. Speaker. The civil servants are telling us that's the case. Retirees as well. How many alarm bells will it take before the federal government takes action?
State for seniors.
Although this delay is already any time too much, a large number of retirees have received their benefits without delay. The department is working to address any problems these clients may encounter. We continue to improve the process for delivery of these benefits. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, this infamous CURAM software depriving retirees of their old age pension is costing us a pretty penny on top of everything else. We're talking a cost overrun of over almost $5 billion. That's 10 times the amount of the SACLIC scandal for software that doesn't work. At that price, with these failures preventing seniors from receiving their pensions and enjoying their retirement, shouldn't the government do something?
Minister of Jobs and Families.
The department is working with the agency to address the cases where individuals have a hard time accessing their benefits. Over 98% of old age security recipients are receiving them without delay. This is a system that is decades old and has been viable. We would invite the member across the way to provide names, and then we will be able to help these individuals. The member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, imagine retiring and then not receiving your pension payments for 9 months. Imagine what that does to your financial planning. Some people need their pension to pay their rent. Some people need it to pay their groceries. Imagine being in their shoes and hearing the government act as if everything were running smoothly. The Bloc Québécois has called for an investigation into the problems caused by the Current software for retirees and these cost overruns. Will the government cooperate? The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors. Our government protects data. We've increased old age security payments. We provide dental care and also housing for seniors. We are modernizing the system so seniors can get better services. We would invite the members across the way to provide the names of individuals who need help, and we will help them.
Long-range mountain.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has some of the highest food inflation in the G7, and Canadians are paying for it at the grocery store. Food bank use has more than doubled, with over 2 million visits every month from people who simply cannot afford groceries. The industrial carbon tax raises costs for farm equipment, fertilizer, and food processors. The Liberals' fuel standard tax raises fuel price for truckers, driving up the cost to getting food to store shelves. Even government reports admit these increases flow through the supply chain to grocery bills. So will this government support our motion to introduce a food affordability plan to eliminate the industrial carbon tax and the fuel standard tax?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In another week in the same tired notes and the same rhetoric that's intended to be nothing but obstruction. I can tell this opposition member from Newfoundland and Labrador that I hear from her constituents regularly. They want us to continue to work on the supports that are important, not just to my province of Newfoundland and Labrador, but the entire country. True affordability measures, growth that will build this country, support workers, stop the nonsense. Let's get to work.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Liberal policies will never lower grocery prices with rebates or temporary fixes. As an example, Bill C-19, we won't block it, but small rebates don't make food cheaper at the checkout. I've heard from retirees in Newfoundland and Labrador who sit just above the GST credit threshold. They get no benefit at all, yet they face the same high grocery prices as everyone else. This temporary measure won't reduce the price of a single item in a grocery store. It's an admission that Liberal policies have driven up the cost of living, and now they're sending checks instead of fixing the problem. Will they support our food affordability plan?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An absolute example of political rhetoric. What will help families is when we support workers, when we build this country, when we support in rural communities, infrastructure. These are real supports. $10 a day childcare allows women to get into the workforce. The child family benefit, dollars in parents' pockets. Let's stop the nonsense. People, Canadians, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians want us to work for them. Please stop this and let's work together.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, Canada now leads the G7, but for the wrong reason, actually, for food inflation. Prices are raising twice as fast as when the Prime Minister took office. The Liberals are taxing producers and shippers. Their fuel tax will cost up to $1,000 per household. Taxing farmers and truckers means taxing families. Conservatives are proposing eliminating the fuel standards tax, increasing competition in the grocery sector. Can we count on their support? The Honourable Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the current circumstances, what really matters to Canadians is to gain back their spending power. That's what we're working on. We're building jobs. We're rebuilding our businesses. And we're also working on this by giving Canadians a number of measures. In my riding alone, and her riding alone, the child tax benefit will have an effect, $8,000 per child effect per family. And that's also an effect that is to be inaudible. The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, if that were working, I think we'd know by now. The only thing we know is that we are champions among the G7 countries when it comes to food inflation. My question is this: will the government simply finally stop taxing the middle class and instead support our plan, which 1, eliminates the fuel standards tax, and 2, increases competition among grocery store chains? It's simple. The only parliamentary secretary. Sorry, Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nature is important, yes, Speaker, because we have to address the issues of climate change, and this is why we shouldn't get rid of every carbon tax, because climate is the thing that has the highest effect on consumer prices. But in the meantime, what we are doing is that we're giving Canadians the means to have more capacity to buy things. We have to put an end to this obstruction. They need to work with common sense measures to help Canadians. That's what we are doing.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, after a decade of Liberal government, Canada has gone from having the strongest middle class in the G7 to the highest food inflation in the G7. A full-time job used to put food on the table. Now it does not even guarantee a full cart of groceries. The government keeps claiming it's helping, yet food inflation has doubled since the Prime Minister took office. Canadians are still paying for more groceries than what they get in the rebate. It's a $10 coupon on a $300 grocery bill for little food. As the saying goes, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. But give Canadians the means to provide, they can eat every day. If this Liberal government truly believes no one in Canada should go hungry, will it support our motion to introduce a food affordability plan?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, we are delivering relief for Canadians when they need it the most, and according to the Canadian Labour Congress, strengthening the GST credit now, the Canadian Groceries and Essentials benefit, will help many Canadians trying to make ends meet. For 12 million people, this support will mean more breathing room when deciding between groceries, rent, medicine, and everyday essentials. This builds on our affordability plan, which includes cutting taxes, dental care, child care, pharmacare for millions of Canadians. This is about fairness and making sure we'll be there to support Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, rebates don't fix problems, they confirm them. That's right. This Liberal government is offering rebates as they've run out of answers. Canadians are being forced to pay $12 billion more in inflationary deficits because grocery inflation spiraled out of control with this Liberal government. Families in my community are demanding lower prices for food. Experts are clear. Food costs more because of endless taxes, regulations, and red tape that drive up the cost of growing, shipping, and buying food in Canada. When families are well fed, communities thrive. So instead of following Trudeau's path of ineffective rebates, I ask again, will the Liberal government support our motion to introduce a food affordability plan to bring relief to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member speaks about relief, and we are delivering that through the Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit. A family of 4 will receive $1,900 a year, but to address the root causes of food insecurity, we are strengthening Canada's food supply by supporting Canadian producers and local greenhouses. That's small businesses, Mr. Speaker. We're building the National Food Security Strategy so food stays affordable and available. According to Food Secure Canada, this is a serious win for Canadians.
Nice.
The honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has doubled down again. Since he took office, food inflation has doubled. Compared to the United States, food inflation has doubled. Since the Liberals took power, food back usage has doubled. The Liberal fuel standard tax already adds 7 cents per litre to the cost of fuel. This Prime Minister wants to more than double that to 17 cents per litre, further increasing food inflation. Will the Liberal government support our food affordability plan by eliminating both the industrial carbon tax and the fuel standard tax, which will provide double the relief for Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they're back from Calgary. They heard moral...
I wouldn't call that an incendiary statement. From the top, the Honourable Government Officer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in Calgary, they heard more old hits than at the Elvis tribute show at the casino. And they come back and repeat them just like the leader writes it out for them in the back rooms. Imaginary taxes, no plan for affordability. We have a bill before this House that will give up to $1,800 for families to afford the cost of groceries in this country. We know that affordability is a challenge. That's why we have real policy, and they just play the old hits, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the people of Mirabel are once again threatened with expropriation by the federal government. After this white elephant airport now, it's time for the high-speed rail line. At the last minute, a new trail line was announced, and it runs through our community, even though there have been zero consultations with elected officials, farmers, or the people of Mirabel. And just like the train, the consultations are passing right through Mirabel without stopping, even though the route will necessarily pass through areas where people are still traumatized by the expropriations of 1969. First, will the government ensure that there are real consultations in Mirabel? The Honourable Minister of Transportation. Of course, there have been consultations, and there will be more. We consult with mayors, stakeholders in the Lower Laurentide region, throughout the region, and in Ontario. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? People are excited. They're excited by this technology, by these advances. And come on, just comparing an international airport to a small rail line 60 meters wide, I think the Honourable Member for Mirabel. Well, the Liberals say they'll discuss the matter with constituents, but in their Bill C-15, they're putting a gun to their heads. People are not excited about receiving expropriation notices by email. They're not exactly thrilled to hear that they won't have the right to contest these notices within 30 days. The Liberals want to eliminate the requirement to hold public hearings and impact assessments. They want to be able to retain control over the land in question for 2 years. Worse yet, they want to unilaterally set the purchase price of the land. C-16. This is a step backward to the 1960s for Mirabel. Will the government withdraw these measures? The Honourable Member for Transportation. Mr. Speaker, why then didn't the member rise to say no to the Quebec Expropriation Act that led to the Express Métropolitain network? This bill is based on the same wording as the Quebec Act, the Ontario Act, that also allows for the development of transit projects. This is nothing new here, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we will be negotiating with these owners.
Member for Calgary East.
The Prime Minister broke his promise that Canada would have the fastest growing economy in the G7 because Liberals liberaled. GDP flatlined in November. GDP per person flatlined in 2025, and the Bank of Canada says that Canada's growth will flatline basically all of next year. And it's because Liberals drove out business investment. And this Prime Minister has done nothing to repeal a single Liberal anti-development law or tax. When will this Prime Minister listen to Conservatives, repeal all these Liberal laws and taxes that are blocking development so Canadians can build?
Here. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Conservative were focused on themselves in Calgary. This country is moving forward, Mr. Speaker. Let me give a piece of news to my colleague because he's been busy in the last few days supporting his leader. Canada will have the second fastest growth in the G7, Mr. Speaker. That's what the international agencies are saying. Canada created hundreds of thousands of jobs, Mr. Speaker. We've seen investments coming in this country. We're building a country for the future. We've made generational investment, Mr. Speaker. While they talk down Canada, we believe in Canada. We'll attract investment. We'll be the fastest growing economy. We'll be the strongest country in the G7.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
With liberal math like that, it's no wonder Canada's economy is tanking and we have the highest inflation for groceries in the G7. Right. Businesses are postponing any type of expansion because liberal taxes and red tape are still making growth impossible. While this government protects oligopolies in banking, telecoms, and groceries, Liberals continue to liberal by blocking energy projects and getting rid of any type of competition. Why not just scrap Liberal barriers and taxes so Canadians can finally build?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speakers, across the country we had great news. New jobs in Thunder Bay at Alstom, new jobs also in La Pocatière in Quebec, new jobs also in St. Thomas with Volkswagen, new jobs in Valley Glencourt in Sudbury, new jobs in Bombardier, Montreal, new jobs in Tachi, Varennes, new jobs also in KS Potash in Béthune, Saskatchewan, new jobs also at Toyota. Good news.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
A new report shows that 10% of all Canadian small businesses have been wiped out since 2020 as new closures outpace startups. The Bank of Canada now says it expects only 1.1% GDP growth next year and says businesses are delaying expansion plans and growth in business investment is forecast to remain flat for 2026. Businesses don't want to invest here because regulations and taxes make it difficult for businesses to invest and grow. So when will the Prime Minister listen to conservative ideas and finally remove taxes and barriers, stopping from Canadian businesses from building and investing?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender
Speaker,
Equality.
we're on a mission to build the strongest economy in the G7, and small businesses are at the heart of that. So while Conservatives talk down Canada, the Prime Minister delivers securing multi-billion-dollar trade deals so that small and medium-sized enterprises can grow and scale their businesses and have opportunities not just here in Canada, but around the world. Our Buy Canadian policy is opening up federal contracts so that Canadian businesses can take advantage of it and ensuring that we can be our own best customer, Mr. Speaker. That's the way that you support small businesses.
Nice job.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, other countries are growing faster because they're cutting red tape and encouraging investment. Meanwhile, here in Canada, over 121,000 small businesses have closed since 2020. Domestic growth is shaped by the overall investment climate. Canadian businesses are postponing projects, productivity is falling, and small businesses are closing at alarming rates. The Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, yet since elected, not a single anti-development law has been repealed and tax burdens continue to rise. So, will this government work with us to remove their own barriers to growth and get out of the way so we can build again in this country?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians aren't going to take advice from a leader on the economy. He's never worked in it. Let's look at economic facts. Strongest growing economy in the G7. Best net debt in the G7. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to grow our economy. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can't cast the Conservative leader's slogans. It's time for us to focus and build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister promised a growing economy, the fastest growing economy in the G7. Now the results. 0% GDP increase in November. GDP may be even going back in Q4. They wanted the forestry sector is down by 12.8%. Then the consequences. Companies are not expanding. They're not investing in Canada. They're choosing the States. My question is simple. Well, when will the Prime Minister implement our ideas to cut bureaucracy and taxes? The Honourable Minister for Industry. Mr. Speaker, we're already cutting in bureaucracy and taxes. We've done it for 22 million Canadians earlier, a bill that should have been better supported by our colleagues. Not only do we have the second fastest growth in the G7, we're creating more jobs in Canada than in the States, 189,000 jobs created since 2025.
The Honourable Member for Acadie and Apple.
Speaker, it's been now 100 days since the launch of Build Canada Homes, and we're now seeing real momentum on the ground. Projects are moving faster, partnerships are coming together, and communities in my riding are seeing concrete progress on affordable housing. Can the Minister for Housing and Infrastructure tell us on what has been achieved in the 100 days of Build Canada Homes and how this initiative is helping Nova Scotians and Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank the member
for his commitment to delivering for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In just 100 days, Build Canada Homes has hit the ground running, delivering
This is a very exciting question, and it's creating a lot of excitement, so we'll have to take a little pause for a second. The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
From the top. Well, first and foremost, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his commitment to delivering for Canadians. In just 100 days, Build Canada Homes has hit the ground running, delivering real results, dealing with Canada's housing crisis. We have signed major agreements with provinces, territories, and cities. We've advanced 6 major federal land projects. We've lined up thousands of affordable homes with tens of thousands more coming. Shovels in the ground this year. Mr. Speaker, in Nova Scotia alone, we're working with the province to deliver 1,430 homes in Nova Scotia, faster, smarter, and affordable.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
20 minutes from my place, you can look across the Canadian border at affordable homes that look exactly like the ones selling for double the price in our country. Nearly half of young Canadians now say they've considered leaving their province just to afford housing. 2 of my daughters moved out of BC to afford a home. Now they want to come back, but prices are worse than ever, and new home sales in Vancouver are down 56%. Does the Prime Minister even care that young people are priced out of home ownership?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the member opposite should study the facts. The price of housing across the country is coming down. Average rents are coming down. Mr. Speaker, mortgage rates have come down. Our plan is working to deliver on affordability. And we saw solid housing starts in this last year. We're focused on delivering that affordability, all types of housing across the country in partnership with communities, some provinces, territories, and Indigenous nations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, this didn't happen by accident. Homes didn't just suddenly become unaffordable on the Canadian side of the border. Government policy made them that way. And that's why sales are collapsing. Builders are laying off workers, and young Canadians are forced to leave. Will the Prime Minister admit his housing policies are the reason young Canadians can afford a home 30 minutes across the border, but not here? Will he finally remove the roadblocks that are driving our talented kids out of Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is committed to the most aggressive investment in affordable housing in Canadian history.
Right on.
And Mr. Speaker, that starts with the first-time home buyer's tax break of $50,000. The members opposite stalled it all through last year. We're bringing that forward and delivering it for young Canadians. We've got $13 billion in this budget to deliver for Build Canada Homes and making sure we're building co-op housing, affordable rental, and $1 billion for supportive transitional housing to help solve the homelessness crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, for years now, young Canadians are finding it more and more difficult to buy their first house. Over the last 10 years, there's been a 10% decrease in access to property, and 8 out of 10 Canadians say that now it's a dream just for the rich. 90% of Gen Zs and millennials say that they are very preoccupied and concerned by this crisis. How can the minister say that his plan is working when young Quebecers are realizing that despite their best efforts, they'll never have access to a home of their own? The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. We need to work to get results, and that's what we're doing on this side of the House. My children know the problems highlighted by my colleague. I have 4 children, and they want access to a home, and we'll find solutions. And that's the reason for which we've committed to working forward with Housing Canada. And a great announcement has been made with Quebec to support infrastructure, because not only for homes, we need water to get there, electricity to get there, we need roads to be there, we need schools, we need infrastructure. That's what we're working on. My colleague, their colleague, and we want to build houses for our youth, and that's what we're doing. The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Despite this crisis, this unprecedented crisis where young families are still trying to find a way to become a homeowner, out of 10 new builds, only 5 will be bought. The 5 others will be rented out. 38% of builders say that they had to lay off workers, and 86% are worried about the future of their business. Construction has been promised, but it's just hot air. Even the Bank of Canada recognizes that there's moderate activity in the real estate industry. When will there be tangible measures with less red tape to allow young Canadians to have really access to a home of their own? The Honourable Secretary of State. Mr. Speaker, the first-time home buyers tax credit is a real solution for young people who want to have a home of their own, and that's one of the measures that we are doing tangibly to help them. My colleague also talked about the challenges of the construction industry. What we have heard from the industry is that they need measures like what we are doing to kickstart the market. Jobs will be created in construction. There will be jobs created in the renewal of our industry. We are creating a better, more effective industry, more jobs, more purchasing powers, and we'll do it, Mr. Speaker. But we need to work as a team, as a whole.
For Newmarket, Aurora.
In my community, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, and nurses cannot afford to buy a home in the communities that they serve. 87% of Canadians are now worried about the housing market, and 86% of builders say that they might not survive the next 12 months. In the middle of a housing crisis, home building should be accelerating. Instead, home sales are down 45% in the GTA. When will this Liberal government finally cut bureaucracy, speed up approvals, and get homes built so that Canadians can afford a home?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has a plan to double housing construction across the country. And that plan, Mr. Speaker, is stuck at Finance Committee because Conservatives like to complain about young people not having a home to buy, and yet when the solution is right in front of them, they obstruct and they block the progress of our bills, Mr. Speaker. We are going to double housing construction in this country, and we'll do it with or without the Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, this is the same Liberal government that campaigned on building at speeds not seen in generations. But in the last year, homes are down 45% in the GTA. The Canadian Home Builders Association warns that allowing these conditions to continue will create a lost decade for home ownerships. The longer this government delays, the more businesses will close and Canadians will lose their jobs. Canadians were promised a path to owning a home, and they are still waiting. When will the Liberals get their bureaucracies out of the way so Canadians can afford a home?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister and our entire caucus was in Alberta, what we heard was the need to move quicker on the construction of home building, and that's what we are delivering. Mr. Speaker, our plan will double construction for homes right across this country, for rental and for purchase, and it's going to respond to the needs of the youth of Canada. But Mr. Speaker, our plan is stuck because the Conservatives refuse to move it out of the Finance Committee. When will the Conservatives stop talking and start acting in order to help us build this country?
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill South.
According to a Missing Middle Initiative report, 69% of Canadians say unaffordability is reshaping who can live in their communities. And nearly half of young Canadians have considered leaving their city or province just to find an affordable home. Meanwhile, ownership-focused housing starts have fallen 69% to 49%. And Canadian home builders warn that this could be a lost decade of home ownership. The Prime Minister promised hope for first-time buyers, but young Canadians see falling sales, lower home ownership rates, and the Canadian promise slipping out of reach. When will this Liberal government stop the bureaucracies, stop the rhetoric, and the taxes that block construction, and finally deliver results in homes that young Canadians can afford?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, while it's heartening to hear the Conservatives talk about affordable housing, it'd be nice if they actually voted in favour of some of the policies that actually help get affordable housing built, Mr. Speaker. A couple of years ago, we invested a novel $1.5 billion into new co-op housing builds, Mr. Speaker, and that means that there are 3,500 units under construction right now or having Canadians move into those homes, Mr. Speaker. We are ramping it up. We're building more affordable housing, Mr. Speaker, and the Conservatives, they continue to stigmatize affordable housing at calling them shacks, and Soviet-style, Mr. Housing. The Conservatives talk a really good talk on housing, but they should vote in favor of some policies that actually get it built.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill South.
Touting a fourth Liberal housing bureaucracy is an admission that the first three bureaucracies have failed. The Bank of Canada says housing activity is subdued or declining in most cities. New home sales are down 45% in the GTA, 52% in the Golden Horseshoe, and a staggering 56% in Vancouver. Builders are laying off workers, projects are shelved, and first-time buyers are squeezed out. After years of broken Liberal promises, rhetoric, and photo ops, home ownership is slipping out of reach at unimaginable speeds. Will this Prime Minister admit his failed approach is failing, work with Conservatives, and finally drop the photo ops rhetoric and costly bureaucracies that are obstructing young Canadians from finding a home?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives talk a good talk on affordable housing, but when it comes time to actually vote in favor of policies that get affordable housing built, they are nowhere to be seen. For the last year, Mr. Speaker, they have been filibustering in committee and making sure that really important policies don't follow through. And Mr. Speaker, they ought to stop filibustering in committee. We've got a first-time homebuyers incentive. We've got more shovels in the ground, and housing starts were up last year, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives talk a big talk on housing, but it's time to walk a walk.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, in the last year, new home sales are down across the country. They are down 45% in the GTA, 52% in the Golden Horseshoe, and 56% in Vancouver. The Canadian Home Builders Association says that allowing these sales conditions to continue will create a lost decade for home ownership in Canada. The Prime Minister promised that the Liberals would help Canadians buy their first homes, but home sales have plummeted during his time as Prime Minister, and young Canadians are losing hope. When will the Liberals adopt our plan to remove the HST from all new home builds so more Canadians can afford to buy a home? That's right.
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's puzzling to hear the Conservatives actually saying anything about affordable housing when they've never done anything historically to support it. Mr. Speaker, we have a $13 billion Build Canada Homes agency coming through and taking action, delivering with provinces, territories, and cities across the country. Last week, we announced 750 homes for Nunavut, which has the biggest housing challenge in the country. We're delivering those affordable homes this year. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives need to step up to the plate because we're knocking it out of the park on housing.
The honourable member for Hull Aylmer.
Mr. Speaker, my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's, and I know how devastating this illness can be, but it's not the only one. Every day, 300 Canadians are diagnosed with dementia. Although there is no cure, we know that community initiatives can make a huge difference for those affected, as well as their friends, families, and caregivers. Could the Minister for Health tell us what steps the government is undertaking to ensure that Canadians with dementia have access to the care they deserve? The Honourable Minister for Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague for his question. I would like to wish him a very happy Black History Month, to him and all of my colleagues. Last week, we announced a more than $4 million envelope for community initiatives that will help us to better understand dementia and to help health and the quality of life of people living with dementia, as well as their families, for example. One of these projects, conducted in collaboration with the Research Institute of the McGill University Health Centre, will provide increased support to underserved populations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, 1,200 auto workers in Oshawa worked their last shift. Families are hurting and good Canadian jobs are moving south, all while this Prime Minister stalls on a trade deal with the United States.
Shameful.
When he was asked about those stalled talks, remember the Prime Minister said, "Who cares?" Well, those 1,200 auto workers in Oshawa are watching today. They want to know, does the Prime Minister care now?
Hear, hear.
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, I've been to Oshawa, I've met with the workers, and I know how much they're frustrated and anxious. And that's why we're standing side by side with them. And that's why also I've been in contact with Unifor, their union, I've been in contact with GM itself, and that is also why we're getting our money back from GM. And that's also why we've restricted the access to the Canadian market to GM. Mr. Speaker, we will invest in those who invest in us.
Honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, that's the same drivel that this minister was trying to sell to auto workers 3 months ago, and nothing's actually gotten better. So let's start with how it started. How it started, they said they were the ones who can negotiate with Donald Trump. Well, let's look at how it's going. 700 auto workers lost their jobs in Ingersoll. 3,000 auto workers have lost their jobs in Brampton, and 1,200 have now lost their jobs in Oshawa. We need to get beyond these talking points. Simple question for this minister. When will these auto workers actually get their jobs back instead of these tired words?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have no lesson to take from the Conservatives who bailed out GM and protected their executives rather than their workers. That's exactly what they did at the time. And now what we're doing, we're coming up with a plan. They have no plan whatsoever, and we presented it to Premier Ford, and what did he say? Really good plan. We'll have good news soon, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
You know, Mr. Speaker, it's really sad for auto workers to hear this secret plan. This secret plan for auto workers sounds an awful lot like the check is in the mail or the dog ate my homework. But you know what's not secret? The 5,000 auto workers who have lost their jobs and now have to figure out how they're going to put food on their table and how they're going to pay their mortgage in a cost of living crisis caused by these Liberals. So my question to this minister is, please get on your beyond your talking points. Please stop saying we're standing up for workers when 5,000 workers have lost their jobs. It's a simple question. When will these workers actually get their jobs back?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government was the first one to create jobs in the auto sector. But at this point, there's 3,000 new jobs in St. Thomas because of the Volkswagen battery plant, which they are against. At this point, in the last year, 3,000 more jobs were created in Windsor at the Stellantis and Nexstar plant because of this government, and they're against it. Stop being against auto workers. We're an auto nation. We believe in them, and we'll invest in them.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the global landscape is changing and countries around the world are looking for ways to attract talent in critical and emerging industries. Canada has delivered globally impactful scientific breakthroughs, is home to world-class institutions, and now has one of the world's largest international research attraction programs. $1.7 billion to bring the best and the brightest from across the world to Canada. Can the Minister of Industry please tell this House how the talent attraction strategy will solidify Canada as the best country in the world for research, science, and discovery?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At a time where certain countries are cutting on research, at a time where academic freedom is under attack, we believe in science and we believe in research. And that is why we've launched our new talent attraction strategy with a budget of $1.7 billion to attract the best and the brightest to the country. And this is one of the biggest budgets on the earth to make sure that we bring them to our country. So, to all those watching us or listening us right now, please come to Canada. We have lots to offer, and we can make sure that you're feeling home.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Crowfoot.
0.0. That was Canada's GDP growth number in November. The fourth quarter growth number is expected to be negative. 2025 was another lost year for the Canadian economy following 10 years of near zero per capita growth. The Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7, but he hasn't repealed any of the government's anti-development laws and taxes. Conservatives have a plan to cut regulations and taxes. We're here to help. Will the Prime Minister adopt our plan?
The Honourable Member for Emergency Management and Community Resilience. The Honourable Minister, I should say.
Mr. Speaker, the world has changed, and it's pretty clear
that after the Conservative convention this weekend, the Leader of the Opposition hasn't. Conservatives keep going back to the same old attacks, demonizing diversity, denying climate change. But we have a plan. We're focused on what Canadians actually care about, supporting families and building Canada in a changing world. That's why we announced new affordability measures, including the groceries and essential benefits that will help up to 1.3 million Albertans. This time, Conservatives got serious.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
The Prime Minister said in Davos, there's a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along. Well, the moment for Canada to show up is here. Canadian-made parts have been found in weapons killing civilians in Gaza, Sudan, and Yemen. A Canadian-made armored vehicle was seen in Minneapolis the day I shot and killed Alex Pretty. Will the Prime Minister live by his words and, quote, stop pretending to name reality and support Bill C-233, the No More Loopholes Act, so that Canadians is not complicit in these horrific acts against humanity?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I urge the member opposite to be accurate in her representation of Canadian law. First, Canada has one of the strongest export permit regimes in the world. Second, Canada has not approved any new permits for items to Israel that could be used in the current conflict in Gaza since January 8th, 2024. Mr. Speaker, third, all permits suspended in 2024 remain suspended and cannot be used to export to Israel. Again, I urge
Is the honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge standing up on a point of order? No. Okay. Okay. Comme il est 15 heures.
It being 3:10, pursuant to order made on Wednesday, November 5th, 2025, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at the second reading stage of Bill C-18. Call in the members.
La question est la suivante.
The question is as follows. Mr. Sidhu, Brampton East, seconded by Ms. McKnight, moved that Bill C-18, an act to implement the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between Canada and Indonesia, be now read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on International Trade.
La période de 10 minutes pour les députés.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started. The House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person.
La motion veuille bien se lever.
All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Monsieur McKinney-Gatineau.
Mr. Ali.
Mr. Ali.
Mr. McDonald-Malpeck.
Mr. McDonald-Malpeck.
Mr. McGuinty.
Mr. McGuinty.
Mr. Robertson.
Mr. Robertson.
Madame Joly.
Madame Joly.
Mr. Champagne.
Monsieur Champagne.
Ms. Thompson.
Ms. Thompson.
Mr. Hodgson.
Mr. Hodgkin.
Mr. Nanda Sangri.
Mr. Nanda Sangri.
Madame Michel.
Madame Michel.